Hey, welcome to the channel. My name is Ike Wellhausen. Thank you so much for stopping by. Go ahead and drop a like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Alright, I got the Max Fan Air Deluxe. This is the 7500 series. So mine is the 7500K. So we will see how this thing is a lot bigger than I thought it was for proportion. It's like the length of my arm. Though the box is about 14 by 14 is what you're installing. So sorry about all the noise, but trying to get this thing out. But here we are, still working. If you've watched any of my other videos, you'll see that there is no framing, no flooring, no subflooring, no nothing in this video at present. I filmed this earlier on into the process and decided that I would attach it to the electrical portion of the video. Thank you so much for understanding. Well, I'm on top of the roof. My wonderful little fan here, so exciting. We're gonna try and figure out how to do the solar today, just because hooking up the rest of the electrical, so it makes sense to get one of your main components of the electrical in there too. So I'm really good at planning. But thanks for dealing with me. What I'm doing here is cleaning the surface so that I can properly display where I'm putting these solar panels, finding the best way to navigate them around both the fan and the actual roof itself. You'll notice that I have 4 100-watt solar panels that I'm using from Renogy. One thing you have to consider is how you're going to attach your cable from your actual power source into your solar panels. So I took the liberty and created 2 holes of my own. However, you can buy special things that you can insert the cables into. They're a little more expensive than I was willing to pay for, so I did this method to get them all attached. You have to be very careful with the amount of holes you actually put in your roof because you're going to be taking on a lot of water when it rains. And the way that this is ridged is kind of confusing for the rain. It sometimes gets caught up there in pools pretty easily. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to secure each of these holes and make them as waterproof as possible. This is one of the fun things. I don't know if you can see it in there, but we have this electrical conduit that we're trying to take up and take over to where all my electricals can be housed. So we're working on trying to find some tools that might work to help us do this.
Okay, so there are several things that I would do differently in this process, but what you see me doing is using this electrical conduit that's a little bit stretchy, kind of like an accordion. I'm stuffing 12 gauge, 14 gauge wire all the way through it, based on the length that it will need to be to get to wherever it's going. I tried to use one central hub for a good portion of the wires so that I could maintain where they all were going so as to not affect how I install the ceiling later on. What you see here is I used a mix of stranded wire as well as solid copper wire, and I probably wouldn't do solid wire again. It's a more stable connection, more direct for the actual 12 volts. However, the stranded tends to work better around all of the bends in the vehicle, and I'm more familiar with 12 gauge and 14 gauge stranded wire anyway. So that would be my biggest suggestion. It tends to maybe cost a little bit more, but I think that you'll be better for it in the end once you're connecting it to your panels later on. Especially because of the nature of the vehicle being a moving vehicle at all times, there's a good chance that the stranded will stick a little longer and a little better than the hard wire throughout. However, I haven't had any problems because I'm pretty good at the electrical work. If you have any questions or comments, please ask them down below in the comment section. First things first, let's throw some insulation in there. One big and important reason you want to install all of your wiring first is so you know where you're going to have your wiring come out. So when I actually had to start installing the insulation and the walls around it, I was like, oh crap, okay, thankfully I already ran my wire so I knew where I could put holes in the walls for the wiring to come out. That's one of your biggest things, and that's one of those mental mind maps where you just have to have an understanding of what it looks like and just try and go with it. I didn't use any CAD or any sort of like programming that they have available for you to do this. I did all of this pen and paper and remeasured and measured everything as I went because there are so many variables when you're trying to build in a van. And I think that was one of the most critical successes to what I did. I know it's hard to see because this is at 300% plus an actual time lapse, but you'll see my dad and I keep re-measuring, and it's because once you start putting the paneling on, you can't exactly see where your guide is as to where you're actually going to screw into the vehicle. And that's pretty critical when you don't want to drill out of the exterior of the van instead of into the walls. And when I'm not helping with the panel, this is what we call multitasking in the business. So I'm working on the lighting as well so that when we start installing the ceiling here in a moment, I have at least some understanding of where the lights are going to be. And with that, this is going to be the end of part 1 of walls and electrical work. I know it's already been a long video and I'm doing my best to wrap this up as quickly as I can, but thank you so much for sticking around, and please come back for part 2. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please ask them in the comment section. Otherwise, like and subscribe, and thank you, and I'll see you next week.